The October 11, 2018 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Royal Oak. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, which appears to be the case tonight, we are down 1 board member, please notify the chairperson immediately following the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And that moves us along to our first item of business, which is the approval of the minutes for the September 13th, 2018 meeting.
I'll make a comment before we proceed forward. You'll notice on the draft minutes of the agenda for the September the 13th meeting, it lists approval of the minutes for September 13th. Obviously, that's incorrect. You approved the minutes for the August meeting. So I went ahead and corrected that. That was the only thing that I noticed.
Okay.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved.
Second?
Second.
I wasn't at the meeting, so.
Technically, you don't have to be, but any corrections, additions, deletions? Above and beyond what Mr. Murphy noted, then I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That moves us on to older unfinished business. We don't have any this evening, I don't believe. So moving right along to our first item of new business, case number 181033, public hearing on the appeal of Jacqueline E Worthy, petitioner and owner for the following variances. And there's a handful of them, so I'll just go ahead and kick the ball over to you, sir.
Sure. The subject property is located on Pleasant, just south of Catalpa, and it's currently comprised of 2 platted lots. You'll see from the photograph in front of you and the survey that was provided, the house sits very far back on the property. The petitioner is proposing to demolish it and all the other structures on the site and go back to the original plat to create 2 vacant lots. There's the survey which illustrates the location of the house and the garage, which again are set back at the rear of the property. There's a provision in the zoning ordinance which allows us to look at the lots that are being created. And if they're the same size or larger than the majority of the lots on the block, and that's in terms of the width, the depth, and the area, we're allowed to administratively approve it. In this case, you'll see on the plat map in front of you, the street is divided at its center point. One portion was platted south of this particular lot. All the lots were platted at 43 feet wide, and this particular property comprised of 2 platted lots, as well as all the properties north on the remainder of the block are platted at 39 feet wide. There are more 43-foot wide lots on the block than there are 39. Now, if there were, I don't know the exact number, 2 or 3 or 4 more 39-foot wide lots, we'd be able to administratively approve it because it would be the same size or larger than the majority. But again, the majority of 43. The petitioner is looking to create 2 39-foot wide lots. So they're seeking a variance from the default standard of 50 feet wide, and the minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. They're seeking waivers from those 2 standards in order to create 2 vacant buildable lots. The petitioner did provide a written correspondence for you in the report, and again, there's the plat map and some photographs I think that might be handy.
Joan? It appears that the 2 that are also 39s then, they appear to be the same size there.
Are you referring to the lots to the north?
Are you talking one street over the backyard's lighting up?
More to the west.
Correct.
Yeah, the next block.
Correct. The block behind it, those are 39 feet as wide, as well as
Are those predominantly 39s throughout?
Yes, portions of those blocks to the east and the west. We'll look at the map, sorry. You'll see that purple line, I'll illustrate it here, that purple line, all the properties north are 39 feet wide, all the properties south are 43 feet wide. For whatever reason, that was the dividing line.
Mr. Murphy, if approved, at something just under 5,200 square foot per lot, would the 30% lot coverage provision hit the 5,200 square feet or the 6,000 square feet in terms of what could actually be built there if approved?
No, it would be the based on the existing lot size, and I'm sorry, you said it would be, what again?
Did I say 30 or is it 35?
So it's 39 feet by 100.
133.
I think it's 133, wasn't it?
133.
It would be 1,800 square feet of lot area,
Okay.
which is just shy of 35%. There's a provision in the ordinance that says on smaller size lots, you can
That's
have up to
correct.
35% lot coverage. But if it's a really small lot, you can only have 1,800 square feet. 35% of the created lots would be 1,815 square feet of coverage, but the ordinance says, no, 1,800 square feet is the max. So it's just under 35% that would be allowable.
Do you
Mr.
have a
Curtis.
definition for smaller in that sentence?
Yes, 6,000 square feet.
Thank you.
So any lot 6,000 square feet or larger can only cover 30% of the lot. For lots under 6,000 square feet, you get a much more generous lot coverage that's allowed.
Any other questions for staff? All right, not seeing any, is the petitioner present? Mr. Simchina, how are you, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the zoning board. Charles Simchina on behalf of petitioner here. With me, Jackie Worthy's here. Penny Toth is here, her realtor. The builder who would build houses without any additional variance is not here, Dan Bean. He's been here with me, several times in the past. Unfortunately, his younger brother passed away suddenly this week, and he's not able to make it. But since you asked some questions about the minimum lot size, I just wanted to emphasize that we've been here before with Dan, and he's built a lot of houses on the narrower, smaller lots. And they've been proportional in context. They don't overwhelm the other homes next to them or in the neighborhood. In a handout I gave you, there's a example of a narrow lot house that he's built in Royal Oak. And this is the type of home we would plan to build here and conform it to the lot so that we would meet the coverage area requirements and all the setback area requirements if the variance is granted. He's not here. Jackie's having surgery tomorrow. My mother just got out of the hospital, and I was trying to email other documents to Mr. Murphy, but it was one by one by one. I don't know if you got them all, so I prepared a handout of an outline of what the variance request is about, a letter from Jackie about the condition of the existing structure, and one of the photos from Dan's portfolio of homes that he's built in Royal Oak. He's built about 100, and some of them have been as a result of variances that you have granted on narrower lots like this. Yeah, and I would like to start out referring to that plat map that's up on the TV, because when I first saw this case, I thought that was one of the most important things to talk about first. That little line that goes west to east and cuts that street in half, I think if it was one lot down, we may have made that administrative approval. Maybe it would have to be two, but one lot down, I think, might make it. We were a hair away from an administrative approval, and we wouldn't have need to come before the zoning board asking for variances. And the lots immediately behind the proposed lot split are 39 feet wide and will line up perfectly with the proposed lots after our lot split is granted, if you so choose. The lots then would be in conformity with the rest of the neighborhood. Everything above that line where the plats are 39 feet will be 39-foot lots now. And the homes built there that exist now, there's some two-story homes consistent in height with what we're going to propose to build, and consistent in style. So the house would fit in harmony with the neighborhood when built. The every lot on that street does not meet the minimum width requirement or the square footage requirements. Every lot is non-conforming except for maybe one that's across the street where there's a house built straddling two lots. So the likelihood of this street turning into 50-foot lots in the near future by somehow combining many individually owned parcels is pretty small. the continued existence of 39-foot lots is very likely. And if this split is granted, we would fit in like a glove. The home was built in '47. Jackie bought it in 2013. Every condition with the home and where the location of these structures are were pre-existing. She didn't place this house there or have it built there. We think there was the addition on the side, we think it was built in the '60s. We couldn't really determine that from any records that we could find. From what she gathers from neighbors and the people she bought the house from, is this house was built by a different builder or a family than most of the other homes in the area. She didn't know that the quality of the home and the construction when she bought it was so poor. She actually did have a home inspection report done that didn't reveal many of the defects in the house. It's a two-story house built on a slab. First floor, it's about a 1,200 square foot home. The first floor is a little bit bigger than the second floor because there was an addition put on there. But she's faced with a little bit of a dilemma. She's had a couple surgeries. One is scheduled for tomorrow again. Her ability to use the second floor is probably going to be non-existent. There's no basement anyway. There's limited storage. It's a pretty small first floor to live in. And she would have to fix the house up, and that's to be able to continue living in there. Maybe even put an addition on there to make it more usable for her. And the letter she wrote was her compilation of different conversations and estimates she had over the last year or so with different construction professionals about what needed to be done in the house and how to fix it up. She literally, the heating system is so poor with baseboard heat that it won't maintain the heat in the house. She would have to replace the heat, the boiler, and some of the other fittings to make the heat spread through the house better. She had to resort to putting bales of hay across the back of her house in particular to provide some extra insulation. Some of the walls in the interior of the house don't have drywall. They're just paneling put against the walls. Sewer problems have erupted that would require ripping up slabs in different sections of the house to repair the sewers, and on and on and on. Most of that's not apparent if you do a drive-by from the street because she did put some effort into fixing up the landscaping, and it kind of looks okay when you go by. The landscaping is nice, and the distance from the street to the house is kind of far, and you don't get a good look at the house when you do a drive-by. But it's not really practical for her to invest that kind of money and to fix the house up. And even if she did the repairs, she needs some more space, and any addition that would be put on the house would need variances, especially if there was an addition on the front of the house because of the front yard setback and trying to bring it in line with the front of the homes on either side of her. There's only about 3 feet of space in the back of the house to the property line, and there's really not enough room on the sides to put another addition. And our thoughts were that if there had to be an addition squeezed in here and a bunch of variances granted to accommodate that, wouldn't it be better to have a variance and make this a conforming property that's similar to the ones up and down the street, and have 2 nice new homes built that are on 39-foot lots that are built at an appropriate size in conformance with all the other zoning setback requirements and minimum lot coverage requirements. It seemed like that made a lot more sense. And to me, I think that this is a good case for a variance to be granted for all of those reasons. You have a unique piece of property different from the rest in the neighborhood in size, and the only structures that are built on the back property line on this whole block that I could see is hers. It's almost like, the kid in high school that has front tooth knocked out. There's a gap there. And your ordinance does want you to have homes built in the general character and in harmony with the homes on your street, in your neighborhood. So granting this variance would do substantial justice not only to the petitioner but also to the neighborhood. It would create something that fits in with the neighborhood, create additional taxable value, property values increasing not only for these properties but for the other ones nearby. Dan builds good houses. Many of you may know some of the locations where he's built in the past, and he can be trusted to do something like he promises to do in that picture that will fit in an appropriate manner on these two parcels after the lots are split. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer questions. Jackie's here, and we're ready to respond.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Samchina at this point? All right, not seeing any. I'll ask you to take a seat, sir, and
I do have one. This is a consent. This is one of the neighbors who did not object to this. Sign this for Jackie.
yeah, just hand that to Ms. Anderson if you would. We'll take a look at it. Thank you, sir. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the ZBA on this matter? I saw you first. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm Carla Getz. I live at 919 North Pleasant, right next to Jackie. I hope you will deny her appeal. First of all, when we all moved to this neighborhood, she was one of the most recent to move to the neighborhood. When we all moved there, the general view of the neighborhood was that the houses were not super close together. There's this space in the middle where with a double lot on each side, so we're not overly crowded. And if we switch it to two lots that are two 39-foot lots with two big houses on them, all of a sudden that changes the whole vibe of the neighborhood. And they made it sound like the question is whether or not Jackie has to stay in this house that's falling down, or if we're going to put in two big new houses. And the reality is, those are not our only options. There are definitely others. When Jackie sells her house, there's no question to any of the rest of us on the street that her house will most likely be torn down and there will be a new house put in there. What I view your question that you're deciding is, should there be two big houses on two tiny lots, or should there be one new house on one comfortable lot? And I see families all the time. I have young kids myself, and people are constantly moving out of Royal Oak. And why is that? That is because they don't have the space that they want. And the way that the lot is right now, that it is a 78-foot lot, single lot, it will make a family very comfortable there. And two big houses on two 39-foot lots, they're going to feel crowded. And what I'm going to see is all of my neighbors are going to be, it's going to be this constant, families moving in, seeing this house that looks like it's big and they're going to have enough space, and then they realize they have no outdoor space. They don't have enough room, because 39 feet is not generous. They are not going to have enough space, and then they're going to move out. And every few years, I'm going to get new neighbors. And I would prefer to have neighbors that have the space and they will stay. One additional thing, if you look at the frontage picture,
She's right next door, but I don't know.
yeah. If you look at the frontage one, they have a very steep driveway, a very steep grade going up. And you can't see the drive over on the right where their driveway is. It's slightly less steep, but they always kind of scrape the bottom of their, well, Jackie doesn't, but other cars, when they pull in, they scrape it. When they put in a second driveway for the second lot, it's slightly steeper and it's close to my house. And what they're going to end up doing is they're going to lower the grade on that, and that's going to affect my sidewalks and how the lots match up, and it'll definitely affect my home in a negative way. So that is a concern of ours. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question for the...
Of course.
Yes. And I agree with the fact that I like a bigger lot,
Yeah.
but the only thing I have is, you say families move in and out because the lot's too small, or is there a reason
Well,
why
actually,
you're still there if it's too small for you, or?
well, I'm a 43-foot lot, so mine
Okay.
is a little bit bigger. But directly across the street and directly next to them on the other side, you're not going to hear from those homeowners today, because their houses are on the market and they are moving out. So the people who are going to be the new neighbors, they don't even know that this is going on, and they can't be here to speak. So I think it's not quite fair to those new neighbors who are about to move in that this is about to happen, and it definitely affects them, and they're not even aware of it, so.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Well, hi, my name's Mike C., resident of North Pleasant. And I have to apologize to Jackie because I've been your neighbor for a long time. I've never met you till now. So, hi, how are you? On the very end, right across from the track. So I get to watch everybody running, getting in more shape than me. So it is what it is. Somebody's got to burn calories in this town, and there's a lot of it going across the street. So I learned a lot just now. I had some preliminary thoughts on this, and they do echo Mrs. Getz's thoughts. However, I didn't know that the lot was previously slotted to be 39-foot slots. I did know that the neighboring slots behind that. But, the thought I have is, I do have to echo, and I'm all against progress, and if there's any street in the entire city that's plotted for some improvements, it would probably be ours. So I'm expecting some tear downs, I'm expecting some new homes, and I think that's a good thing. I have no doubt that the house that they're going to put up, actually I agreed with this gentleman here, probably about 80%, 90% of what he said, except that I live there, and there is congestion, and the more houses we congest into this neighborhood, what's going on in Maple, the two slots on the other side of that fence, that's a dead-end street. They don't have all the soccer games going on. They don't have all of that use. They don't have all the parking problems. You add just yet one more family. There's no parking in front of my house. I'm in a fireway, an emergency lane, right? And then Gail's house across the street. And, of course, half of Barrett's house next to her. So some of us can't even park. Now, I'm fortunate to have two lots in my driveway, so I'm very fortunate for that. But when we have people over, it is challenging. So you had more families, so I got to have family park down the street or anybody else. Now, that's part of living in urban suburbia, and that's what it is. So I accept that. And certainly I would love to see some nice houses on our streets, new builds. I would love that. But I think Mrs. Getz has got a real good point. You bring in, why do we got to continue to keep condensing these houses, and what precedents are we setting? Okay, so we're on a border, and we allow for 39 foot on this side and 43 on that side. And again, I don't know all that it is that you guys do as a zoning board, but it just seems to me, I moved into this neighborhood 14 years ago, almost, in January. Love every second of it, love all my neighbors, and they are family neighborhoods, people that play in the yards. My wife was a foster parent. We had kids playing in the yard. We're all playing in the yards. But you're condensing all of this stuff and setting a precedence for what's it going to look like 10 years from now? What's it going to look like 20 years from now? And that's something that we don't tend to do a lot of, is think past, a week. And I have no begrudge against Jackie wanting to make a buck and trying to split the properties, and I think I understand that. I respect that. However, I got to live there, right? And so I agree with Carla. Why can't we have a nice property and have a larger home, larger properties? Nobody wants smaller properties. Nobody wants that. If you want to build townhomes, build them downtown. Build them down in condos, and we got plenty of that going on down here. So why do we have to have all that condensed? I appreciate what you said, sir. However, I agree with Carla. We got sewer problems as it is. Our water pressure is not that wonderful, and we continue on with this process. What are we going to do? Enter in duplexes down the road, and enter in apartments? Well, we got these 3 duplexes in a row, Mr. C. Now let's turn this into apartment complex. We'll just put that all in. Where does this stop? And I'm 80 years old, and I got to live next to all this. Right, so that's kind of where I'm thinking. My wife and I do intend to stay here for the remainder of our lives, Mr. and Mrs. Getz, and there's several families on our street that love this street. Again, I'm not against progress. I'm not against bringing in some beautiful homes, but I think there could be another way to do that that would maybe please all of us, and that would be, in my opinion, not to split the property. Okay, so any questions for me on that? Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice? I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Anybody has any questions, or Mr. Simchin, if you want to come up, we're probably gonna have questions for you anyway, sir.
I could make a couple of comments. People always have fear, change, something a little bit different. Concrete fear is always because overwhelming the neighborhood with huge giant houses, but that's not going to happen here. It absolutely won't happen because the other ordinance provisions require the homes to be built with a certain lot coverage and setbacks. And we have a track record of being able to accomplish those goals and make houses that are compatible and harmonious with the neighborhood, the entire neighborhood. And they will fit in nicely on 39-foot lots, just like half the block has homes that fit in nicely on 39-foot lots. And if there's any congestion, it's mostly because it's close to the middle school where the playgrounds and fields are for the kids to play soccer. I have, and I can present this also, Penny gave me some of these documents. There's only a handful of homes that sold in Royal Oak out of the last 1,500 that are in the upper price range, which is what would be demanded if we went with one lot and tried to build one home on one lot. You would have to make that work economically, you'd have to have a home between $750,000 and $900,000. And I have the recent sale prices of those, but there's very few. And those, one house on this lot in this neighborhood would be incompatible. It would be large, it would be out of size, and probably wouldn't sell because the homes in this neighborhood are not priced in that price range. So if I can present this 3-page document also for the record.
Mr. Samchina, because of the narrowness of the lot, can I ask, do you know if the builder is planning on building the houses in such a way where there will be a 2-car garage toward the rear of the property and then a driveway running along one side for the entire
Yes.
length to feed that? So
Yeah, they'll be
I think
detached.
that would solve a lot of car problems. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Samchina, are we going to see this person in front of us again for more variances? Should we approve this tonight? We don't know what we're looking at really, so.
Absolutely not. And he can build this without variances. This board granted a variance about 2 years ago on Gardenia. It was on a 35-foot lot. And the home fits nicely. It looks great. It doesn't cause any problems. And it's about a half a block east of Main on Gardenia. And we will not need any other variances. We'll comply with all the zoning ordinances. And when the houses are built, I think, and people see them, they will realize that their fears were unfounded.
Any other questions for Mrs. Samchina? Yes, ma'am.
I understand there's a hardship in that the house has to be torn down. But what is the hardship in building another house that isn't $800,000, $900,000 on that lot?
Well, cost of land and the relationship between the cost of a sale price of a home. Sale prices of homes in this neighborhood have a certain price level. You would have to justify one house on one lot, that house would have to sell for a price much higher than is common in this neighborhood. It would have to sell for prices like in that document that I handed out, which is at the peak of Royal Oak pricing, basically. Very few houses sell at those kinds of prices, let alone homes in this particular neighborhood.
Potentially, what would the sale prices you think would be aiming for on your 2 houses?
You know, Dan's not here to speak, but I think they'd be around 400, 450 in that range. You know, they'd be much more affordable for families.
And Mrs. Samchina, since I have failed to ask you so far, we are short a member. Do you want to move forward or do you want us to table this?
Well, let me consult.
Of course.
Could I have Penny speak first before?
Would it be okay? So I understand what the neighbors are saying, and it's actually completely the opposite because they're saying it won't fit in to have houses the exact same size or slightly larger than what we have. So we want one house on one lot. But the problem is with builders, there's a formula that they use when they say, I'm going to buy a piece of land, and for me to make a profit, because it's all about money, for me to make a profit, I have to make this much money, and it's usually I'll spend a third on the lot and then the rest on the house, and then I'm going to sell it and make my profit. So for someone, a builder, to buy this lot as one lot, who's $300,000, they're going to have to build, and I'm going to contradict you, $900,000 to $1 million would be the home. That won't fit in your neighborhood. It will not fit in that neighborhood. And if you look, because I pulled these comps today, last year, not condos, residential homes, Out of 1,542 homes that were sold in Royal Oak last year, there were 4 above 800,000. That is a needle in the haystack buyer. Royal Oak people understand they're getting a smaller lot, but they want Royal Oak. They want to be in this neighborhood. They want this community, and they are willing to live in a smaller lot and have a bigger house. They know what they're buying. They're not toddlers. If they're old enough to spend $500,000 on a house, they're old enough to look at the lot and say, this is small and we have parks all around us. Our kids can play there. This is the community that we want. But the whole concept of building a $900,000 home on a double lot in this neighborhood, that would absolutely not fit in. Look at the average square footage of the homes on there. Probably nothing above 2,000 square feet. So if you're going to build $1 million home, you're going to be at 3,000 square feet or 3,200 square feet. I would argue that that's not going to fit in, not two $450,000 homes.
Thank you.
That's kind of why this is here with this proposal to build 2 homes that would be affordable and fit in the neighborhood. And we would like you to go ahead and consider our petition and vote on that tonight.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody on this side of the table who's prepared to make a statement or take action?
Well, I'd like to ask our resident real estate
Yeah, I
expert.
was thinking the same thing, both of them.
Well, if you want to talk about the real estate, so I did a little, you couldn't build, the maximum allowable on 30% coverage on that lot as it exists would be 3,118 square feet if I did my math right. Houses in that price point in Royal Oak, I searched from 2,700 to 3,200 while they were talking, and there are how many houses here? 33 houses that sold in that square footage. They range from 300,000 to 800 and something thousand. So if you're asking me what I think of this as a one-family lot, is that what you're asking me? I don't agree with every number I just heard, but I kind of agree with the concept that a big fancy house in the middle of this block is out of character for the block. With that said, I'd like to move that we grant this variance if the board is ready for a motion.
I'll support that.
That's A through D, sir?
Yes, sir. And thank you for clarifying A through D. My thought on this is that it really is originally platted for 39-foot lots, and yes, it's nice to have a big lot in the middle of the block like that, but this particular house is clearly, it was built, by the way, in 1946, if that was the question people were wondering. You say we're sure. 46 is what it said in public records. But I think that if we're not going over the coverage, which I wouldn't want to see any more variances from the builder in front of us on this, we're doing the setbacks, we can put 2 nice homes, and I agree with the notion that it's surrounded by parks. There is what it is to live in these neighborhoods, but there is room to go down the street and enjoy lots and lots of green space. So I think it would be a nice addition to the neighborhood personally.
Any follow-up, Mr. Kroll?
Yes. It's a wonderful luxury to have a lot in the middle of smaller lots. I will grant you that. But it is a luxury. The neighborhood doesn't own it. These people own it. The thought that if we don't approve it today, they'll go build $1 million house there, and I agree that wouldn't fit at all. The house is obviously falling down, but from the description that we've received. The other thing I think that's important to note here is we're not really asking for 11 feet. We're asking for 4. Because the largest lot in the neighborhood is 43 feet wide. So we're not really going from 39 to 50. We're going from 39 to 43. That's about this much. I know of the gentleman that's going to build these houses. I spent some time researching it with Joseph a little bit, and then I did a travel show around town to look at the houses he's built. Especially the one on Gardenia is on a 35-foot lot. And I think what you'll end up with when this is all said and done is 2 very nice homes. I spent 5, 6 years on the board, took 9 years off, and in my first 5 or 6, I wouldn't approve a lot split if my mother came in front of us. But in those 9 years that I wasn't here, the other board members decided that was kind of a ultra-conservative approach to this, and it wasn't really where Royal Oak was going. And in those 9 years, I've seen just an incredible integration of new homes in neighborhoods you'd go, what? And it's just amazing to me the amount of money we're getting in some of the neighborhoods. We're getting them, but they've integrated them. They look beautiful. We don't have, today's houses, people don't live in with 8 kids in 1,100 square foot bungalows. People are moving to Troy, moving to Rochester, moving to Novi, moving to more land, because that's the way we live today. So I think getting 2 homes that have families that live in them with kids that go to our schools is a real positive thing.
I think I saw Ms. Anderson, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think you're splitting hairs there on this 43 to 39, because I feel that if Royal Oak didn't want to go in this direction, which it doesn't seem they are, they would change the ordinance. It's a 50-foot ordinance to build. I feel that a house could be built on there, one single house. I disagree with, I mean, there's some things I do agree with and some things I don't, but what I'm seeing here is not about the variances, not about the ordinances. It's all about how can I make the most money here? That's what I'm seeing. I see, oh, I can't build one house because I'm not going to make enough money. That's not our criteria. And I just feel that a 39-foot lot is very small. And those 39-foot lots used to have bungalows on them. They weren't the 3,100 square feet, or whatever the max is on that people can build today. I think it would change the dynamic of that neighborhood. And I think one house would look much better, even if it did max out at 3,500 square feet. And you build it and they will come and they will buy. That's the bottom line. They want to be in Royal Oak so badly. It does not matter if it's the biggest house in the block. If someone wants it, they'll buy it. And in Huntington Woods, they were tearing down houses right next to each other so they could build a bigger house because their lot sizes were so small. So there you go.
I agree with everything you say, but I kind of come from a point of reality, I think. There is never going to be a 50-foot lot in that neighborhood unless this particular one knocks it down and builds a house. There are no 50-foot lots. So let's deal from a realistic standpoint. There aren't any 50-foot lots.
Hey, Ellen, but there may not be 50-foot lots, but there is a house that has a double lot across the street, the one on the corner, that's a little bit bigger. I'm just saying that, yes, I can see where the city platted it a little different. What their thinking was, I don't know. Maybe they thought, oh, they don't have to pay as much, so it's a little more affordable housing for those people on the 39-foot lots. I don't know how they originally platted it. I just feel that I know what our criteria is, and I haven't heard a hardship other than a monetary one.
Mr. Curtis, I think I saw you next.
I was just going to, again, with a quick computation, on a 39 by 133 lot, the maximum square footage with the coverage of 35% on a smaller lot is 1,815 square feet. So I don't think we're going to see a mansion here. 1,800 square feet is going to fit nicely into that neighborhood, in my opinion.
Mr. Oltec.
I agree this is very tough because, like they pointed out, if this was even if this was split 39 and 43, this probably would not be in front of us. As I've stated before, I very much love the small, large lots and feel that we're losing a lot of those. And I agree also that the hardship, other than it just being right there on the cusp, has only been presented as a monetary thing. They're wanting something that as soon as we grant this, they're out of here. This is changing the neighborhood that they're leaving. Now, I also agree that it's probably would be nicer to see 2 houses there versus one large one, but I'm torn on this one. Because, like I said, there's not the hardship. We're supposed to be voting on the hardships, not necessarily what we feel is the best for monetary gain or what we think for the future. of the other values of the home, other than, is this gonna make the neighborhood better or worse? I think it'll make it better no matter what. You get a new house there, a new house. New house always makes the neighborhood go up, whether it's one or two.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think it's a tough call also. If they're all 39-foot lots on that side of the purple line. But if the city of Royal Oak didn't want 50-foot lots, they wouldn't have changed the ordinance. They don't want it to change to be 39-foot lots. I think the hardship is only financial, but any of these bungalows on the 39-foot lots, they could tear down and build big houses also. So the arguments go both ways, and because most of these are 39 front foot lots, it's a tough call for me. And 78 is not that big a lot, because corner lots have to be 60 feet. So we're not talking about a giant lot here at 78.
When we, if we go back 10 years or so ago, when we were talking about lot coverage and lot sizes at the planning commission level, the 50-foot lot was chosen because there is so much of the city that was built further down the road in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s where there was a lot of 50-foot lots. Actually, Ms. Anderson and I have a mutual friend who lives on South Maple who doesn't even have a driveway. Their lot is so narrow. So we understood that in picking that 50-foot number, that there was going to be a lot of parts of the city, particularly the older parts of the city, where it just, one size does not fit all, but you have to try to agree on something. To me, I just look at this and it's going to create a bank of 10 lots that are going to be all compatible with 39-foot back to back to back to back to back. And if you go further south, you have a whole bank of 43-foot lots. It just creates consistency and continuity and I'm sorry that the monetary discussion went as far as it did. I probably should have shut it down because that really has nothing to do with what we're debating here. I think just creates simple continuity in the neighborhood. And to Mr. C's point, one thing I would say to you, sir, when you talked about townhouses and duplexes and apartments, this is zoned single family. That's never going to happen. So that slippery slope is really not a consideration or a concern that you should have. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I guess just, again, it's what we're dealing with. I mean, we can pie in the sky it all we want. This is what we got. One of the things I really like about sitting on the Royal Oak Zoning Board is that we have to understand that we've had a lot of different rules. I mean, every house in Royal Oak was built on a lot that at some point was legal, I would imagine. And every month we get this brought to us. And I think you have to decide on an individual basis. I think we've probably gone more toward approving lot splits of late than not. And really what's in front of us is not $1 million house on that lot, that we're going to approve. That's not here. So I think what's in front of us is a good solution.
But what's in front of you is the capability for someone to build a single-family home on that lot.
I know. Do you got somebody to build it?
I don't know what they have. I'm just saying
I know,
that
we can play what if you want.
Don't interrupt her.
I know, but I guess what I'm saying is that I don't see a hardship. I still don't see a hardship.
You've made that point.
Right, so.
All right, not seeing any other hands, and I guess I will go ahead and call. Oh, did you have a comment, sir?
Yeah, if I could make
Yeah, please go to the microphone.
Just as your ordinance sets dimensional standards, your ordinance gives great discretion and through a whole series of criteria to create variances to deviate from those standards. And when examining these hardship issues, the ordinance asks you to look at peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties and exceptional undue hardship upon the owner. And there are some practical difficulties here and undue hardship because she can't use the whole house anymore. And the location, the unique circumstances here, the location of these structures, even if economically it was feasible to put additions on there's no place to put them, and they would require variances more extensive than the variances we're asking for. So I think with her hardship upon the owner, you can consider that as one of the components of examining hardship. It's the most unusual piece of property with these houses built in the back and the garage and 3 feet from a back property line. This should be cleaned up and have 2 nice houses. And you're right, Mr. Curtis, the lot coverage is limited. It's 1,900 square foot, right around there. The homes that will be built will be appropriately sized, and it will fit in nicely with this neighborhood and with the other lot sizes in this neighborhood. And Jackie does have a hardship.
Thank you, sir. All right, not seeing any other hands, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
Can I see a show of hands for the nays? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, so that'll move us right along to item D2, which is our second item of new business, which is case number 181034. Mr. Murphy?
Guys,
Can you guys take the
Yeah.
discussion out to the hallway, please? Thank you.
the date in a little bit.
This subject property is located on Potter. It's just south, 2 houses to be exact, 2 houses south of Whittier Park. You can see from the photograph in front of you that it's improved with a 1.5-story home. And the better view, which is relevant to what they're proposing, is the rear of the house. You can see the notched out portion where there's a set of stairs that go to the back door. And they're proposing to do a 1-story addition in that location and a full 2nd-story addition to the rear of the house. So from that roof ridge, build a 2nd-story addition out to match the footprint and expand the ground floor area. As you can see, the house is very close to the property lines, and we'll refer to the survey to illustrate its proximity. The subject property is located here at 306, and you'll see that solid black line delineates the property line, and it shares, according to the survey, the drive, which is between the 2 homes, is essentially shared between the 2, and a portion of the drive is on one side, and one property, and a portion of the drive is on the other. The house does maintain the non-conforming 3.3-foot north side yard setback adjacent to the driveway. It's required to be at least 8 feet, a setback of 8 feet, and it maintains a 2.3-foot south side yard setback. So again, non-conforming in both terms. The minimum is 8 on the driveway side and 4 on the non-driveway side. And the petitioner is proposing to expand the house and match the footprint below, with the exception of the shaded gray area, which is an expansion of the ground floor. The proposal doesn't meet it retains the existing setbacks, and therefore it doesn't meet the current setback requirements. So they're seeking to expand the non-conforming structure in a non-conforming manner. They also need the minimum driveway width of 8 feet, and there's no possible way to do that with only 3.3 feet. They've given us some sketch floor plans and a sketch illustration of the rear of the dwelling. I think the photographs in the report probably are significant in illustrating the current circumstances, and the petitioner can speak to what their proposal hopes to achieve for them.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy?
I have a quick question, Mr. Murphy. The house to the north has a parking pad. Is that part of does that have anything to do with their driveway? And you really can't see it, but, well, I guess you can in the aerial view there.
Okay,
But
yes.
as we were looking at it today, Paul and I happened to be there at the same time.
No, that's actually not, I don't believe that's theirs. I think that's probably the city property. I don't know that for an unquestionable fact, but I imagine it's probably not on their property. I know when we installed that sidewalk through, the north-south sidewalk through the park several years ago, that was on city property.
Okay. Yeah, I think it must just be grandfathered in as a parking pad.
Or it may have been some type of, if it is on public property, it may have been some easement agreement to give that house a parking pad or something of that nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Not seeing any. Is the petitioner present? Please come forward. Hello. Good evening.
I'm Alan Schlutow. I live in 306 Potter Avenue with my wife, Melanie. And so, yeah, the house just to the north, that is a parking pad that they use. So we have a shared driveway. Nobody really parks in the driveway. We just park in front of the house and in front of the house. So what we want to do is basically just expand our kitchen out a little bit for a little bit more room. We have 2 kids now, so there's more people in the house, so we need just a little bit more room. The back room itself, you saw the picture before, is in pretty bad shape. It doesn't have forced heat to the back room. It's just a crawl space that's under there that's kind of also in very bad shape. The siding's falling apart. There's a lot of leaking around the gutters that are just kind of, it's just a bad room to have to really to go into and to live in. So that's our proposal, is just to add a room for our expanding family and to redo that back room so it's not really falling apart.
Simple enough. Mr. Ofack.
Is there a reason why you couldn't have it cut short so that it could meet the setback on the one side at least, the driveway side, so that you weren't pinching the driveway so much?
I'm not really sure to that question.
Well, like you show on the floor plans, and it doesn't really say what that room is. It just calls it as a 25 or 24-foot by 12-foot wide room on the first floor, and same thing with the second floor. It's 12-foot 4 by 24-foot. So the question is there any reason why it couldn't be, instead of 24 feet, 20 feet, or 19? Why does it have to be so big, that space? I understand you want more space, but what's the hardship of preventing you from not cutting it back that space? Like the overall layout?
I'd have to default to her.
My name's Robert Johnson, and my company is Johnson Building Company.
Yes,
I expect to be the remodeling contractor to do their work. We're not under contract at this point, but I've been trying to help them get through this variance. To respond to your question, we're actually just bringing the house in line on back another 10 feet from where it is. So we're not infringing on the driveway any more than it's already infringed on by the existing home. Does that answer your question?
You're correct in that statement, but what I'm asking is there any way that you could have done this? Why are you coming for the variance to have that full distance instead of just lining it up? Why couldn't you have just made the width on that side to actually meet the variance requirement?
Well, it seemed more appropriate to make the footprint of the dwelling to be rectangular, and likewise the back elevation would then be uniform across rather than having a jog in it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not seeing any, the petitioner's already taking a seat. I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the ZBA on this issue? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Murray Paff. I live at 302 Potter, and I own the duplex that is 300 and 302 Potter to the south side of the Schlutows. They're great neighbors. Great people for Royal Oak, and I support anything that they want to do with this to improve their property and make more room for their family, of which their son is my son's best friend, and he's only 2, and it's great for him to have a best friend at 2. So I'm in support of what they're doing.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Megan Royal, and I own 308 Potter Avenue, so the opposite side as Murray, and I am also in support of this. I think that it really does not concern me as the adjacent property owner. My house existing is, grandfathered in and has an addition that was built before I owned the property that also, encroaches on that property line along that shared driveway. And I think that what they're proposing to do is really no different than, my existing structure. So I am also in support.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, excuse me, you live in the house directly next door?
I do, yes.
Thank you. So you share the driveway?
We do, yes.
Do you guys both have like Porsches or something to get in there? I tried to get my Lincoln wagon in there. That was not happening. I want to look at the back. I was gonna get caught between the two houses.
I've actually never been brave enough to
go there?
drive back.
Yeah, I understand that.
I understand you guys have you seen the parking pad that was kind of grandfathered in on the other side of my house, and I park on the street frequently, but it takes a lot of courage to navigate that 2-track driveway.
I can't imagine with 6 inches of snow on the ground, so.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you so very much. Anybody else to address the ZBA on this issue? All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side. Did I see your hand, Ms. Anderson?
Well, I was actually going to ask the builder, or the petitioner, one quick question.
Of course.
Is this a 2-story addition you're doing, or is it just, I can't tell from the illustration of the 2-story house, the last illustration you had, because it looked very prairie-like because there was no houses around it. So, but that's not what your house looks like right now. Is it going to be a 2-story, or is it? Okay, so that wall is going to be go all the way up for 2 stories. Okay, that's why I wasn't sure. Did you look at any other solutions to this, like Mr. Olfak was mentioning about moving it in just a little bit?
Actually, can I ask one of you to come to the microphone so the people at home can hear this captivating?
And so, repeat the question.
So, on the floor plan.
Yeah.
Were there any, like say the first floor plan, you've got a variety of rooms mapped out there. Was there any thought of pulling in the one nearest to the driveway for that addition? Could you pull it in a little bit? Did you go through any type of plans, just looking at all alternatives here?
These were pretty initial plans. There were really all we're adding is a really small square.
Well, I know that, but we're talking about that driveway is so narrow.
Right, and we're not encroaching on that driveway, that narrow driveway. It's still going to stay straight back.
But that's what you're needing the variance for, because of that tight driveway.
Right.
Because even though your driveway really is only like 2 feet or
It would be
4 feet,
tight if it was an 8-foot house or a 40-foot building.
I know, but I'm just couldn't tell from your plans if it was going to.
The area right in the back by the driveway is the kitchen. So basically, we're going to expand the kitchen a little bit for a little bit more room in the back, and then keep it in line with the rest of the house. The back room is just a small square room with. So we wanted to meet the back, basically
So I guess
the
my
back edge of the house.
question to you, I understand that. Did you look at any other alternatives through this process of how you could meet the criteria?
I guess not really.
Okay. Some people, they keep working with it and they find that this is the only thing that works, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Could you tell me how deep your lot is, out of curiosity? It looks like it's very deep.
It is. It's 130 feet.
So it's hundreds of.
Yeah.
But it's 30 feet wide.
Yes, I saw. And I grew up going to Whittier School, so I'm sort of familiar with that end of the park. But it was like, the one survey doesn't even show the back of the lot.
It's too far.
Yeah, it's too far to put on a piece of paper. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'll bring it back to this side of the table for any additional discussion or if somebody's prepared to take action. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you folks, we are short a board member. Do you want us to move forward with the vote? Of course, thank you. Mr. Mueller.
These kind of driveways are terrible, and I've got a friend who lives with a shared driveway. But the houses are there, the walls are there. nobody's gonna tear both these houses down, and you couldn't build anything on a 30-foot lot anyways. We could put a house trailer on a 30-foot lot, if that was legal, probably. Extending it isn't gonna make that narrow driveway worse. But if you only add a 4-foot by 10-foot piece to the back of the house, you're not adding a heck of a lot of anything either in the room. It's already like an hourglass. Once you're in that narrow driveway, it doesn't matter if you gotta drive another 10 feet in it or not. It's already the problem. Bizarre, we just talked about a 39-foot lot, and here's a 30-foot lot.
It's getting smaller.
Yeah, but the houses are there. And yeah, I can see, I'd be the one to, you know, go down that in the snow at 30 miles an hour, but most people wouldn't. But then the aluminum siding wouldn't look that good either.
Nor would the car.
So I don't see a problem. It doesn't make the variance worse in my mind in this case. It's an extreme, if there's a hardship, it's a 30-foot lot, and that is a really freaky lot. Usually we're looking at odd lots because they're pie-shaped or they're something like that. But I would support this one.
Well, there's no motion on the table yet.
I know, I'm just letting you know even before I make, okay, I'll make a motion, but somebody else might want to say something on the other side of the issue.
We shouldn't say anything for or
Okay,
against until
we'll get the motion going. I make a motion to approve the variances, all four.
I'll support.
All five.
All five? Oh, I'm sorry, all
I'll
five.
support. I'll second.
And we have a second? All right, any follow-up discussion?
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm reading the nonconformity ordinance, and it says that the intent is to permit them to remain under certain conditions until they're discontinued or removed, but not to encourage their survival, or where the discontinuance or removal is not feasible, to gradually upgrade such nonconformities to conforming status. These are really big nonconformities here already, and we're doing something to prolong those nonconformities. And I think there's safety hazards with having such a narrow space between those two houses. And if the houses get bigger, that safety aspect is even worse. I feel for them because they are there and they're stuck with what they have. But the purpose of this ordinance is to prevent keeping those like that, not to encourage them to continue. So that's where my problem is with this.
I would say to you, I mean, we really actually had a case that wasn't too terribly different from this with the multifamily unit proposition behind Holiday Market, and the reality is on a 30-foot lot, if you're gonna build something that's gonna meet all of our standards, you can build a balance beam.
Yeah.
You know, the hardship is that it's a 30-foot lot. I mean, if they were expanding the nonconformity to be above and beyond what already exists, then they would have lost me. But the fact that they're taking a pretty challenged piece of property, they're gonna beautify it, they're not gonna alter the nonconformity any further, I find this one very easy to support. Mr. Curtis first.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you pointing out, because that clearly is the intent, right? You don't want to further a bad situation, right? And that's a fair thing to add. But as you were saying, and I'm not trying to, you know, contradict you, I'm just trying to imagine, how does a board do that? What could be done that would not, I mean, because like someone said, no one's tearing this house down and building something else on 30 feet. So it's there. And I'm just trying to think, you know, I was wrestling with the idea, is there a way to move that addition over X number of feet so as not to continue down that line? And, yeah, then you have a 4-foot wide addition to your kitchen, which is not really useful. I mean, you can't even put a little table and chairs back there. I'm just trying to imagine what can possibly be done that somehow mitigates the nonconformity. And so far, I haven't come up with a good idea. I'd be open to them.
Who was next, Mr. Kroll?
I think it's wonderful that this couple wants to fix this house and stay in Royal Oak and stay in this house, because I don't know what we'd do with it otherwise. 30-foot lot is a serious hardship. I mean, somebody built this house and it was allowed when they built it, I imagine. I think what they're proposing is much more beautiful than this. And I think it's wonderful that you want to invest this money in this property.
We're on this side of the table, sir. Mr. Olfak.
Even though I brought up the whole thing, and there is the way to mitigate it, which is instead of 24 feet wide, it's 20 feet wide or 19 feet wide across from the one side to the other with the relief on the driveway side. I'm fine with supporting the whole variance as it is, because they're gonna have to build it with the fire safety, with it being so close, otherwise city inspectors won't allow it to get built. So even though it's close, and if a fire unfortunately started in one, hopefully the other one would build it in such a way that it prevents it from getting on fire. But, so for right now, I'm supporting this.
Any other comments?
I'll
Yes,
just-
ma'am.
We do have a lot of discretion, and I'm just raising this point because of the ordinance, and I'm looking at it legally. And I think what the ordinance anticipated originally was to let this house be torn down at some point and, you know, just increase the size of the other house. That's, you know, with our discretion, I'm not suggesting that be done, but I think that's where the ordinance was aimed. And I just wanted to point that out when we look at these nonconformities.
I think any house we built on a 30-foot lot, would it have to have variances to start with? I think it, by the setbacks, I think you're already getting smaller or narrower than, because it seems to me there was a width point on a house. Yeah.
Well, that's just it with the side yard setbacks on a 30-foot lot. I mean, at some point,
Yeah, I
the
think
home becomes so narrow that it's
So I think the
impractical.
only thing that would finally get rid of all of this would be if both houses were tore down and the lots were combined. I doubt that's gonna, that'd be very interesting, 60-foot lot by 300 feet. But nobody built a house in that neighborhood either.
I saw Mr. Klatt and Ms. Anderson.
So that's not a motion, is it?
No, no. it's just-
My only concern and the only thing that's holding me back is the fact that they hadn't explored all different design aspects of it. And I think that we could have I could have been on board with maybe a lesser variance, but still a variance. And that's where I was going with that whole point there.
Mr. Klatt.
I just feel it's a very modest addition. I think the neighbor that's affected the most is in full support of this too. So that's why I'm in full support of it.
Then I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
All right, you're all set. Motion passes.
You guys might try some three-wheelers, by the way.
Can we shed some light?
Some segues.
Glad those pickleball players didn't chase you out of town.
Oh, we like them. Their house was there before anything else in the neighborhood. It was a farmhouse.
Getting at by this
So if anybody
building.
approached, my house was put in when I think 696 was built, and so I think they have the hardship of everybody coming in around them.
30-foot lots with a driveway.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving right along to case number D3, or item D3, case number 181035. Mr. Murphy?
This property is located on York, which is west of Woodward Avenue. You'll see from the existing photograph in front of you and survey that the second story on the front elevation of the home cantilevers. There's living space that cantilevers over the ground for the first floor. And that cantilevered section is where we measure the front yard setback to. The minimum required front yard setback is the average of the directly adjacent homes. That average is 40 feet. The house measured to the cantilever currently has a 38.8 foot front yard setback. The petitioner is proposing to modify to do some renovations to the home, and they're seeking to modify the front elevation. Additionally, they would add, I'll refer to their second floor plan here. You'll see side by side the first level and the second level. The modification would be to a portion of the upper floor directly above the front door below. That second story would be modified to push that cantilevered section out further and reduce the front yard setback further by the width of 14 feet and three and a half additional feet further out. So if the modification to the house reduces the front yard setback, which is already non-conforming, and in order to accomplish that, they need a waiver from the setback standard to do so. the side elevation and the front elevation also depict that second-story cantilever additional floor area for the bathroom, expansion of the bathroom on the second floor, and that would be the resulting elevation of the home. So it's not just a second-story modification, it's essentially redoing the entire front facade of the home.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy at this point? Not seeing any. Are the petitioners present? Yeah, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Chris Morgan from Chris Morgan and Associates. I'm here with Will Curry, the homeowner. And do you want to give him, he's got a letter in support from one of the neighbors.
Absolutely. I hand those to Ms. Anderson. She'll pass them around.
As Mr. Murphy said, so what initially they hired me to do was to give the house a new look. It's kind of devoid of much architectural style. That's his wife. And so we started looking at what we could do to give this house an updated look. She really likes the modern prairie look. So as we were looking at that, they also wanted to update their master bathroom, which was tiny. And so we looked at modifying the floor plan. Part of what we accomplished here was trying to give the house some depth. The porch is actually, the slab itself is there. There's a 14-foot by 7-foot slab currently. So we covered that, and then we wanted to allow the second level the same width for obvious reasons, for symmetry, and then bump it out as little as we needed to, but we did need to bump it out 3 feet to make the master bathroom work. We feel like it is in keeping. In fact, there's a house about a dozen houses down that's very similar to this, actually. The neighborhood's being renovated, and we do feel like it's in keeping size-wise and with the styles that are being built in this neighborhood. And we don't feel like it's a detriment to any of the adjacent neighbors, and we feel like it actually enhances the neighborhood. So we're asking for the variance and hope you agree.
Any questions for the petitioner? Yes, sir.
Similar to what I started out with the last one, although I will agree that you've definitely made an improvement in how the house looks. Was there any way to have done that without needing this variance? Because at the very least, I know you could have swapped the bathroom with the closet and linen area, and albeit you'd have a smaller walk-in closet, you could still do it without that bump out on the front.
Yeah, we looked at a lot of different ideas, and one really and you're correct, we could totally give them a smaller bathroom, smaller closet, and make that, because the bedroom was huge. Really, part of this was to give it some architectural character from the outside. And if we were going to bump it out a foot or 2 feet, it seemed like 3 foot gave us a proper walkway for the bathroom and did give us the compartmentalized bathroom that we were looking to obtain, and with a nice walk-in closet. So it did give us, and like I said, working with the porch that's there now, covering it and utilizing that full width seemed to make sense architecturally. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we've lived here for about 7 or close to 8 years now. And when we first moved in, we loved the house, we loved Royal Oak, loved the street. But the one thing we wanted to change was the appearance of the house. It was just this flat front. And the block, the area has homes with such great character. And we want to just change the look of the house so it has, again, some relief to it. And I don't know how we can do that without actually coming into that setback a little bit. I don't want to go into it that far. You know, we just want to make this small change, just again to add some character to the home. So I just wanted to make that point. Thanks.
Any questions at this point? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Curry, have you talked to the neighbors on both sides of you about this?
I have not talked to the neighbors directly adjacent to me. They haven't voiced any concerns to me. The one, so it's not going to be across the whole width of the home. So the one that it would really impact, which I don't really see it being an impact, to be honest with you, would be the one to the left there in the photo, and they haven't expressed any concern to me about it.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, well, I'm going to ask you gentlemen just to step aside real quickly if anybody wants to address us on this matter. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak? I saw that gentleman walk in. I thought he might want to say something. All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and, oh.
Nope.
Oh, he's going to talk to her, okay. I will then close the public hearing to bring it back to this side of the table. And as the other two cases, we are short a board member. Do you want us to table this or move forward, sir? Move forward, please. Absolutely. All right, ball's on our side of the court. Yes, ma'am.
I'm kind of a design snob, and I think that this is a great improvement. We're only talking about 4 feet. I know this doesn't sound like me that much, but
What happened to Deb? What did you do? Who hit Deb?
3 feet or 4 feet?
yeah.
She must turn to a pumpkin at 8:15.
That's probably what
Hurry,
it
hurry.
is. So, yeah, I would move to support this
Both variances?
request, both variances.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any additional discussion?
I'd like to say that there is a similar, I don't know if it was 12 houses down, because I did try and walk down and kind of get that line of sight. There's a little bit of a back and forth of houses where they're sitting. One is actually set much further back, a little bit further to the south. And I think it would fit, I think that what they're proposing would be appropriate for this area.
I agree. I mean, frankly, the one thing that I don't care for how the home looks currently is it's over 34 foot wide, just the home itself, with nothing really breaking up that front elevation. And this bump out really sort of makes it pop a little bit. And I think the only question I have for Mr. Curry is, how often do you have to yell at your friends and tell them you don't live in Huntington Woods?
It's always I thought too.
Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, I will be supporting this. It took me about a second and a half to look at the house and look at the pictures. That's good, so.
Any other discussion? I think it's all been said then. All right, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. You're all set.
Unanimous one.
All right, so that takes us to our only item of other business, which is the meeting schedule and religious holidays for 2019. I think we all had a chance to review it if there's anything that we have any problems with.
The absence of everyone on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, Valentine's Day may not be a great idea.
I don't care.
All right, not seeing any, then,
Yeah.
I thought you didn't put your birthdays in there.
They? I don't know what that Jewish holiday is, so I'm good with that. No, I'm good.
The feast day.
Yeah, it's bad, we got holidays I don't even know about.
Was there a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Support.
second.
All right.
All right, any discussion on the holiday schedule?
Who's not gonna be here on Valentine's?
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, so then that takes us to public comment, and there's nobody left, so I guess we can
I have a public
go
comment.
right by that.
I don't know if you guys caught his wife's eyes when you started talking about the walk-in closet. It was great.
Cutting it down.
Get rid of that closet, there's no problem,
She
right?
just like looked up.
With that out of the way, we are looking for the mystery
To
motion.
adjourn.
Support that.
All those in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.